not come to me. The one who I am to become needs blood for the change to be complete. You have seen what he will do, and it is your blood that he wants most. Laura, we are cursed. In our veins flows the blood of Dracula. Now I will tell you everything. Hear me and leave before the one who is not me can emerge. Laura, in our veins flows the blood of Dracula. The time of change comes to all of his blood. It starts with lust for the strange. Then comes the desire for human flesh to make the change complete. Yes, Laura, that time came for you as well. I erased the memory so you have forgotten. When Dracula took control of you, with those very hands you killed your mother. It is our fate to be accursed. And now you know you must leave. I feel myself changing. I want your flesh, Laura. Listen to what I say. It is your flesh that I need, just as you needed your mother's. Come to me! Laura, you've ended it. Thank you. A little more, and the change would have been complete. Perhaps, as a doctor, I wanted to see how the transformation would affect me. But that was wrong. And now, I will end my life as a man of flesh and blood. Laura, thank you. I love you. My last wish is that...
And so the story of D has reached its conclusion. But, of course, time to summarize what just happened, and this time explain a few other details as well. First, let's start with the last message that Richter bestows upon Laura. In our veins flows the blood of Dracula. So apparently, it turns out that Richter had been possessed by Dracula, and that's why he ended up killing all those people in the hospital. Dracula also had been the one that created the creepy castle in Richter's mind, which could very well be why Laura couldn't just up and leave as she had been instructed to several times throughout the game. I'm not exactly sure why it was Dracula specifically that possessed Richter, considering he's a vampire, not a ghostly spirit, but then again, he was, as I said before, the one responsible for creating the castle that was in Richter's mind. And by the way, when I say Richter, I don't mean Richter Belmont. I mean Laura's father, Dr. Harris. Richter just happens to be his first name. Next, let's talk about the vision in the last glowing bug. We finally get some resolution as to what the visions from the glowing bugs are about, and if you thought the previous visions were unsettling, the last one, I think, is the creepiest. Each vision showed a woman eating at what looked like a dinner table, and then backed away before getting stabbed to death. It turns out the one who stabbed that poor woman to death was none other than Laura herself. So, it seems Richter wasn't the only one to be possessed by Dracula. And the woman Laura murdered under Dracula's influence? That was apparently her mother. So, just to reiterate, Laura got possessed by Dracula, stabbed her mother to death with a knife, and fed on her remains. That is very much a messed up situation. Although, part of me just wants to believe possessed Laura just wanted to have her mother's liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti. Sorry, I couldn't help but think of Hannibal Lecter when I saw Laura just munching away on her mother's sliced-off arm. It's actually also worth noting that the glowing bugs triggered these visions since they're the same shape as the pendant that was worn by Laura's mother. Oh, and for those wondering what that blue object next to the clock is, that is Laura's compact. It's an item I normally don't use in the game, but its main purpose is to show you what you should currently be doing, just in case you get stuck. However, you can only use the compact 3 times, as the mirror in it breaks more and more each time it gets used. I would suggest using it as a last resort, or for a more difficult part of the game. And before I forget, let's talk about that final confrontation with Richter. It's already been established at this point that he was possessed by Dracula, and he even confirmed that Dracula also possessed Laura, causing her to murder her mother in cold blood. Now, how far back that incident went is unknown, but soon Richter feels his body changing, getting ready to be fully controlled by Dracula. At this point, Laura has 2 choices, and the choice you pick decides what ending you get. The one I chose for this playthrough is the good ending. Remember that flintlock pistol that Laura used to break the stained glass window? Well, you can use it again to shoot at the now possessed Richter, killing him, but also ending the apparent possession curse. With his dying breath, Richter thanks Laura for ending the family curse, but unfortunately dies before he can say what his last wish is. With Richter dead and the family curse ended, Laura is transported back to the hospital, and then it just fades to black and rolls the staff credits. And now for some extra thoughts on the game. I said in the introduction that this game was created by Kenji Eno, who also provided some of the music heard and even wrote and directed the game as well. The company he was a part of, Warp, had developed quite a few games before and after D, including the other 2 games that Mr. Eno was directly involved with. Those 2 games are, of course, Enemy Zero, which was released in 1996 exclusively for the Sega Saturn, and D2, which was released in 2000 for the Sega Dreamcast, forming a trilogy of sorts alongside D. The common factor between these three games is that each one has a main protagonist named Laura, though it's not the same Laura going from one game to the next. As Mr. Eno was working on these games, he tried an ambitious idea at the time, of having the characters in each of the games be played by digital actors. This is especially the case with Laura being the protagonist in each game, because games were becoming more cinematic at that time. Going back to D, when the credits are done, the game shows that I got all the glowing bugs, before the screen fades to black and the sound of a baby crying plays for a few seconds. There actually is a reason for why you hear that if you get all the bugs. I mentioned that D2 was released in the year 2000 for the Sega Dreamcast, but that wasn't the game it was going to be originally. After D had been released, there was already a sequel in development, and it was going to be for the follow-up to the 3DO, the Panasonic M2. Unfortunately, the M2 was abruptly cancelled in 1997, probably due to the fact that the 3DO was not doing very well in terms of sales, and of course being outsold by the Nintendo 64 and the original PlayStation. This version of D2 was going to have you take control of Laura's son, who gets warped back in time and, now as a teenager, has to get through a castle, just like Laura did in the first D. That's about as much information I could get about the scrapped version of what D2 was going to be though, but I personally would have loved to see what that game would be like, if it had released as intended. Though it looks like we won't be getting any more games from good old Mr. Eno. Warp disbanded shortly after D2 was released, and Kenji Eno sadly died in 2013 due to a case of hypertension. He really was good at what he did best, making unorthodox games, but also a surprisingly good storyteller too. Rest in peace, Kenji Eno, and thank you for making these unusual games. I really enjoyed playing through D, though I sadly won't be playing Enemy Zero or D2 anytime soon. The Sega Saturn version of Enemy Zero, much like the Saturn itself, is pretty pricey, and I haven't had the best of luck emulating Sega Saturn games, and the same goes for Dreamcast games too. If it wasn't for Derek Alexander from the YouTube channel Stop Skeletons from Fighting, I wouldn't have known about this game, so I'm grateful that I got to learn about the D trilogy and the history of Warp and Kenji Eno because of him. Thanks, Derek. Well, time to go for now. I'll be posting videos on my Let's Play channel again soon, but until then, hope you guys enjoy Halloween, stay safe, be sure to subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell so you don't miss an upload from me. Until then, I've been Trickster Fox, saying always remember to keep your gaming spirit alive. See you guys later.